Hi, welcome back, and today we wanted to talk about defensive pocket knives. Pocket knives you are going to be using for self-defense. If you look at almost anyone's everyday carry kit, you're almost always going to find a pocket knife somewhere in there. And that's because pocket knives are very good tools. They're used for multiple purposes, but one of the main marketed purposes of everyday carry knives nowadays is self-defense. You'll see a lot of people talk about when they're researching, reading reviews, they want a knife they can use for self-defense along with utility. I'm the same way. I want a knife that can do both. But understanding what knives were intended for and what they're actually good for is very important. So we created a 5-point list that you should use to consider before buying a knife for self-defense. So we'll get right into it. The first thing that you should really be concentrated on before anything else is blade length and reach. And this is going to be relative and also not relative, and I'll get into what that means further down the video. Blade reach is really important for two main reasons, and that's, of course, one, keeping yourself as far away from the bad guy as possible. If you can do damage to an assailant from further away, that's always going to be better. And two, because a longer blade is simply going to do more damage, whether you are chopping, whether you are stabbing, or whether you are slashing. You're going to have more surface area on the blade. You're going to have more material going into the body on a thrust, and depending on the blade geometry and shape, you'll have more weight on the blade to chop. So how long should the blade be? And this is where it's kind of relative. I tell people this when they ask me how long should the blade be that I buy. You buy the longest blade that you can carry comfortably and legally. So check your local laws. You really have to consider your own clothing style, your occupation, what you're doing for a living, and what you're using the knife for. But the longer the blade, the better. Just make sure that you can comfortably carry it and that you can legally carry it. The second aspect that you should be concentrating on is the blade geometry and its intended purpose. So that's one aspect. So what do I mean by that? Different blades were designed for different things. Here we have the Fox 479 karambit over here, and karambits were designed for one thing, and that's for seizing and lacerating. Can you stab with it? Of course you can. But the Fox karambit, or any other kind of karambit, was designed to seize flesh and to lacerate. It is strictly an anti-personnel weapon, and it does phenomenally at it. In fact, the karambit is one of the deadliest knives in existence that I know of. Just the design itself, it kills a lot of people every year in other countries especially. So it has a proven track record, but you also have to be careful with legality depending on where you live. If you ever have to use it in court, or you have to use it in real life, what's going to happen when you go to court. They're going to look at this and realize that this is an anti-personnel knife specifically. So just keep that in mind. Over here we have my personal carry knife. This is what I've been carrying for 2 years now. This is the Spyderco Mannix XL2, I believe. And this knife is phenomenal. It's smooth, it's well made, it's made out of a good steel. And it's long. It's a larger knife, and it's good for both utility and for defensive use. It has a good belly on the knife for slashing. It's flat ground, so that's more for utility purposes. And it has a very, very good point, in my opinion, for thrusting. And lastly, we have the Ganzo G7513 in carbon fiber. I picked this knife up specifically for aesthetics, but I was blown away by the quality, just the feel, the smoothness of operation with the knife. And I'll get more into that later on, but it's just a smooth knife. The blade shape is that same kind of leaf style, shaped blade, very similar to the Spyderco, except it has swedges, it has different lines that I feel will help it in penetrating thicker material like leather, plastic, whatever it may be. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. So next is the grip shape and the grip material, and specifically this is important for weapon retention. A knife can be taken away from you in a fight. It's a definite reality. So We have different, we'll go with material first. So grip material, these two are G10. So they're textured G10 scales, and you can feel there's grippiness to them. There's definite grippiness to them, and that's good. You should, you know, depending on your personal taste, if you like more aggressive or less aggressive, I would say that this is kind of a smoother material, a smoother finish. This one is definitely more coarse on the Fox, but it's very grippy, very positive. It's not coming out of my hands at all. It's not sliding at all. But a knife like this Ganzo, which has carbon fiber scales, you can see the reflection. That's very smooth. If this gets wet, it's going to be a lot harder, in my opinion, to hold on to this thing. And we'll, again, in my later videos, we'll demonstrate that. It has some of the jimping on the back here, over here, but really, there's really no grip in the center. And that's what I would be worried about self-defense wise. Now, they do make this model in G10 as well, and I've actually owned that model, and it does feel just as good as these two. So keep that in mind. If there's not a whole lot of grippiness on the scales itself, the shape and profile of your scales is going, and the knife in general, the handle, is going to be very important. The deeper the grooves are, the more pronounced the choils are, all that, the more retention you're going to have over the knife. Even if you have aluminum, solid aluminum handles, untextured carbon fiber type stuff, a deeper choil and more recessed grooves is really going to help you out. And the cross guards on the Kershaw flippers and all that are also going to be very, very useful. The Fox Karambit has two. You can see them right there. And that really does help with not only retention but leverage as well. You also want more recessed grooves, especially in the front, to prevent your hand from sliding onto the blade. When you're panicked and you're going through the body alarm response, whether or not you tighten your grip or loosen your grip or whatever it may be, you're not going to be as optimal as you would if you were calm. So, and of course you have no idea what's going to happen in that fight. You don't want your hand to slide up on the blade when you're thrusting. And handle profiles that are very straight with no recesses at all, those are, in my opinion, extremely dangerous. Very poor choice for self-defense. Next is concealability. And this kind of coincides with your blade reach. You're going to have to kind of consider the ratio. This is where it's a little more relative too, because this is going to depend on what you do for a living. This is going to depend on your clothing. You need a knife that you can conceal, because the greatest advantage you will have in a self-defense situation is the element of surprise. The bigger the knife you have, say, I'll give you an example, like the Cold Steel series, like the Voyager, the Raja, the Espada, those are very big knives, and they will do tremendous amounts of damage in a knife fight if you are able to connect with them. They're not very concealable knives. They can be concealed, but they're just not very concealable knives compared to 3 to 5 inch blades. I would say like 3 to 4 probably the best. But if that's what if you wear a clothing style where you can conceal an Espada or any kind of similar shaped blade, size blade, that's going to probably help you a lot more than one of these knives. But again, it's just a very big knife. So consider concealability when you are buying your knife. Lastly, but most importantly, is deployment. So how does the knife deploy? How does it open? So here we have the Axis style opening mechanisms from Ganzo, and then the cage ball, which is very similar to the Axis from Spyderco. And I really do like these opening methods. I don't really use them for the opening, I use them for the closing, but I use a normal thumb stud, and as you notice, there's just a lot of smoothness to this one. The least amount of steps you need to open your knife and get it into the fight is what you need. So this one's pretty easy. So smoothness is very important. A lot of people discount smoothness because they really don't consider a few milliseconds important in a fight, and it really is. Somebody closing ground on you, you want to have those milliseconds. You want to be able to get the knife up and running quick. If you get a knife that is not as smooth, so I only use this for example because this knife's dirty. I haven't cleaned it in a very long time. If I have to do 2 motions, or more, God forbid, it's doing two things. It's cutting into the time that I have to react to a situation, and two, it's creating a very high profile deployment on my part. So if I'm doing this and doing that, it's very easy to see the motion with my wrist, and that gives the opponent, that gives my assailant a whole lot more time to react. Now granted, this is a smooth knife, it just needs to be cleaned out, but if you notice, this is very quick. This requires almost nothing. And it's going to be relative to the user as well, but keep that in mind. But by far the fastest deployment system I have ever used is the wave feature on, it's featured on a whole lot of different knives, not just the Karambit, not just the Fox, but this little hook right here is what's called a wave feature, or the wave feature, and it was coined and I believe patented by Emerson Knives, which is actually out of here for Virginia Beach. They did a lot of commissions for the SEAL teams and stuff back in the day. But the wave feature is really cool. If you don't know about it, it's this little hook catches on your pocket and automatically deploys the knife. And let's see if I can demonstrate it with just my hand. But it pulls it straight out just that way. And it requires no additional manipulation of the thumb stud or thumb hole like the Emerson, I'm sorry, the Fox has right there. It doesn't require anything else, and it's a very intuitive and instant deployment of the knife. So in my opinion, that has been one of the best deployment methods on a self-defense knife by far. It's very low profile, it's very streamlined, you can come straight up the body with it, and it's very hard to see. So if you do have any questions about other features on other pocket knives, or if you have any comments or you want to share an experience, please feel free to comment down below. We'll be creating a whole lot, many more videos in the future dealing with reviews of these specific knives and more. Knife techniques and effectiveness. We'll probably be demonstrating, if not in this video, other videos, the effectiveness of different blade styles and steels and everything. So just stay tuned, keep in mind, you know, if you have any other ideas that you want reviewed, throw it our way and we'll see if we can do it for you. But other than that, I hope everybody had a great holiday, and stay tuned to our next video. Thanks for watching.